Good evening. I'm Francesca Zambello, and this evening we have for you a glimpse of Glimmerglass's most recent commission for young people, The Jungle Book. Providing opportunities for local young people has been one of my top priorities at Glimmerglass. When I got here, I made sure we were programming main stage operas that included children's choruses. I was so impressed by the talent, hard work, and enthusiasm of these young people that I decided they needed a show of their own. So in 2015, we commissioned our first opera for young people, Odyssey, by Ben Moore and Kelley Rourke. We sold out every performance, including added performances. Odyssey has gone on to be performed across the country with a total of 8 productions to date. The Jungle Book by Kamala, Sankaram, and Kelley Rourke is the 4th opera we have commissioned for the Glimmerglass Youth Chorus. There are many works that have been written for adults to perform for kids, but very few that put young people center stage. I am proud that Glimmerglass is creating a repertory that gives opera companies across the country a new way to engage with the young people in their audiences. I have had Jungle Book in the back of my mind for a while, and I knew Kamala Sankaram would be the perfect composer to bring the story to life. When I approached her, she was excited about the opportunity to introduce young people to elements of India's rich classical music tradition. As some of you may know, Kipling's Jungle Book contains many different stories. Librettist Kelley Rourke has chosen to focus on the idea of Mowgli as refugee. When an endangered human cub seeks refuge with a pack of wolves, the pack must decide whether sheltering the stranger is worth the risk. For this evening's glimpse, Kamala worked with dancer-choreographer Preeti Vasudevan to bring us a special performance of Bagheera's Aria. In just a few moments, we'll host its premiere showing. After that, Kamala and Preeti will tell us a bit more about the elements of Indian classical music and dance and what went into making the piece. Then we'll watch Bagheera's Aria one last time.
Put a collar on my neck and put me on display in a collar on when she's bored or frightened. Yes, beware of the human who is frightened. I was chained and shamed in the city of men, and nothing was ever the same again. I was chained and shamed in the city of men, and nothing was ever the same again.
Hi, my name is Kamala Sankaram, and I'm the composer of the Jungle Book. I'm really excited that we can share this special version of Bagheera's Aria with you, and that I get to tell you a little bit about how the music works. The Jungle Book is based on the structures of Indian classical music, blended with the harmonic techniques and vocal styles of European classical music. Now, Indian classical music, in both its Hindustani and Carnatic forms, is very ancient and very complex. Too complex for me to fully explain it in this hopefully short video, but I hope that I can give you a broad overview, that I can tell you a little bit about how it works in the context of this opera, and that I can pique your interest enough that you'll be inspired to dive in more on your own. So just like European classical music, Indian classical music, in both its Hindustani and Carnatic forms, has evolved specific approaches to the issues of musical time and musical space. Hindustani music, which is found in the north, and Carnatic music, which is found in the south, have similar approaches to the way that they handle rhythm, pitch, and scale. Let's talk about rhythm. In Indian music, the rhythmic dimension is called tal. Whereas European classical music divides time into alternating patterns of strong and weak beats, the Indian approach is more cyclical. The strong beat is called sam, and it's the first and the last beat of the cycle. In this aria, you're going to hear a Hindustani tal called dadra. Dadra is a 6-beat cycle that's usually used to accompany vocal classical music. In Hindustani music, these tals are given their characteristic flavor by a pattern of drum strokes called a teka. These drum strokes specifically come from the tabla, which is the main percussion instrument used in Hindustani music. So the teka for dadra consists of da, di, na, da, ti, na. And we can hear it using my trusty tabla machine. Da, di, na, da, ti, na, da, di, na, da, ti, na. The melodic element of Indian music comes from the raga system. The word raga means color, and that's really the best way to understand what it means, because a raga is not exactly like a scale. Rather, what gives a raga its characteristic feel is the notes that it uses, yes, but also how those notes relate to each other and which notes are emphasized. A raga may have different notes that are used in ascending passages than in descending passages. The ragas I chose for the Jungle Book are each meant to convey a specific mood. So I often used the raga Bhairavi to convey something sad. I'm going to demonstrate it for you now using the Indian solfege, which is called sargam. So, sa re ga ma pa da ni sa, sa ni da pa ma ga re sa. Bagheera's aria is in a similar emotional world, but slightly more bittersweet. So I chose a different raga, Nata Bhairavi, which is similar to Bhairavi, but has a natural second rather than a flatted second. So, sa re ga ma pa da ni sa, sa ni da pa ma ga re sa. It's basically like the natural minor scale in Western music. Finally, for this special version of the aria, I played the main theme on my sitar, which is an instrument used in Hindustani music. You'll hear a lot of the characteristic ornament called meend. Meend is a way of pulling the string to get from one note to another. Thanks so much for listening. I hope you enjoy the performance of Bagheera's aria.
Hi, my name is Preeti Vasudevan, and I am the choreographer and the dancer who you see in Bagheera's aria. I'm standing in the place where we filmed most of the dance. We did this during the time of the coronavirus pandemic, so there were no theatres or studios open. When I was listening to the music of the aria, I realized that the environment for Bagheera was the city, right here where I live. Bagheera has been taken to a city as a small cub and raised, and eventually chained and displayed and humiliated. So I wanted to bring the confines of the city, the fear of a city, into Bagheera's life. So what better place to film it than New York City? And this is right behind my own apartment building. My background is in Indian dance. And in my dance form, we use a lot of hand gestures and facial expressions to tell stories. In this aria, I have chosen one particular gesture. It looks like this. You see? Now, for this aria, which is about Bagheera, a panther, which is a cat, I decided to take this gesture and modify it slightly to show the snout of the cat and to curl in my fingers to show the cat's ears. Now, for example, in this piece, you will see me go from my side of my body, grabbing through my hands. And as I turn the hand around, I look for this gesture, and you see how this gesture comes alive to become Bagheera. Now let's look at my feet. You'll see that I've used my feet quite a lot in this video. In my dance, we create a lot of rhythms with the feet. Now, in this aria, you don't hear the sounds of the feet as you normally might when you see a different kind of performance. That is because of the music. The music has its own rhythmic structure, and I wanted to create silent foot movements that go in time with the music, the beautiful aria that's been created. Now, I want to talk about something very important. The face, which is a very important aspect in Indian dance. We show a lot of emotions through it. In Bagheera's aria, I chose fear as the main expression. And fear becomes anger all through the frustration of Bagheera living and being confined in the city and not being allowed to live free. The expression for fear in my dance form is called Bhayanakam, and it looks like this. Now, in Bagheera's aria, I make it more subtle to show how the animal's expressions can be very hidden and show a little glimpse of the feelings deep within. Now, you might be wondering, why am I not jumping around like a cat? Bagheera is, after all, a big wild cat. There are no leaps, no jumps, no turns. Where's the dancing? Well, this aria has a mood. The mood is that of sadness and melancholy and frustration. You'll see Bagheera trying to break free from many things. So, I want to create this mood over here of bringing the lyrics, the words, and the music in harmony with the movement by choosing isolations of the body, some shoulder movements, some eye movements, some neck movements, and hand gestures to bring the cat into one being. See if you can spot them when you watch the video. And finally, let me talk about the end sequence. There, I'm trying to show how animals live within us. We're not different from nature, we are nature. So you'll see my face alongside the gesture of Bagheera, and the two of us looking at each other just like the way you would look at a mirror and recognize yourself in that mirror. In a similar way, I bring Bagheera's face right in front of mine, becoming one.
I hope you have enjoyed this evening, and I hope that you will be back next Thursday again to witness more of Glimmerglass Glimpses. Thank you so much for being here.
It was early morning and my mother was hunting when I heard the voices of the men. I was 5 days old and my eyes were barely open, a helpless kitten in the den. Then a hand reached out and scooped me up, and a voice said, "Hello, little friend. Hello, little friend." And he carried me off to the city of men, and nothing was ever the same again. And he carried me to the city of men, and nothing was ever the same again. Those first few months I was petted and spoiled with human cubs. I purred and played, but the humans grew bored, and I grew. How I grew! They began to be afraid, and they tore out my clothes and put a collar on my neck and put me on display in a collar-on parade. And I was chained and shamed in the city of men, and nothing was ever the same again. And I was chained and shamed in the city of men, and nothing was ever the same I lived for years in the city of men, and there I became enlightened. A human can be the kindest of creatures, except when she's bored or frightened. Yes, beware